Namaste, Zil, and welcome, Gemini, to your tarot card reading for this new moon phase. The new moon is on 24th of November until 7th of December, when the next full moon hits. Ooh, it's raining in Bali. I wish you could hear this. It's always like when like God taking a shower, and dropping the soap every time the thunder hits. It's amazing. Back to the new moon in Sagittarius. It's going to be adventurous. And that means for an air sign, putting plans into action, even though they're not fully thought through yet. It's just like this learning by doing vibe is making us move forward. That is a beautiful energy to be in. So good energy for parties as well, right? And getting your mind off things. That being said, it is a general reading. So if the message doesn't resonate with you, feel free to drop the message. If it does resonate with you, drop a comment, like, and subscribe. We're going to see how the soul is coming into manifestation in the DNA spread with the soul line in the middle, the axis in the middle, and the energies balancing around this. Now in your soul spot, there is, what is it? Ooh, completion. So Four of Wands. The Four of Wands, this is the Thoth Tarot deck. Also, that's why I have to look twice a little, getting used to it. Four of Wands is a beautiful energy. It's like things coming together, and it's a rite of passage as well. It's like you're striving for completion. There is, well, there is a chapter that is completing where you're like, okay, enough with the thinking about it. It's time for the doing part. That's a very, very cool thing. Like it's this rite of passage. It's an Aries energy also here on the card. So it's pulling you forward, right? It's amazing. It's really amazing, especially for a Gemini. There's always like seeing the pros and cons of a situation. It feels like your soul decided it's time to get going, but in a very secure manner, because the Four of Wands, like the four, is stability. It's like you know what you want, you know what you got to do to get there, all that stuff. So it's going to be amazing. In the spot of the nine, that is the topic that this reading has for you, this experience has for you. That's a Prince of Cups. That's beautiful. Prince of Cups is, well, love coming in. You're working on that, like finding that love. And whether it is in a relationship or in a job, it is very much for you to be doing what you love, in a sense, right? To only like look for that truth in these emotions. It's a new beginning in emotionality that you're striving for here, that you're gonna, yeah, that you're gonna get. I mean, it's coming in. The Prince of Cups is like the messenger of those emotions, of true love, right? And it's also talking about playfulness and all that stuff. So just getting it going and being playful. Like I said, it's a party energy in a sense. Let's see how you're actually manifesting this. In the spot of the 10, there's a Queen of Discs in reverse. Well, you're not supposed to read reversals with the Thoth Tarot. I do it anyway. But Queen of Discs is knowing her worth, knowing where to invest. Now, this could be actually a person in your life that you are not exactly pulling away from, but you realize the motivation of the Queen of Cups is like nurturing and trying something stable, and very materialistic, but in the best sense possible, actually. But this in reverse, and then with the Prince of Cups as the core energy of this reading, you realize that it's not so much about the material for you, but more about the love. And like you rather opt for something you truly want to do and that is fulfilling you, than for something that just feels stable or just feels like a smart investment. You don't so much care about that. So it's either that an investment didn't work out and you're like, you know what, actually I don't care about it, or that someone just has a way of talking about things, or like a motivation that doesn't sit right with you, where you're like, yeah, nice, with the numbers and all, but I don't care about the numbers. I just want to know if it works and if I love it, that kind of deal. Let's see further into the energies of this. There's something I haven't quite gotten yet from these energies coming together, because my gut is kind of telling me dive deeper into it. So let's dive deeper into it and see what's coming to light here. The spot of the one, the thing that gets you moving, is a Three of Swords. So it is worry. It is what's getting you going is sorrow, is a feeling of heartbreak. So it could be tied to that Queen of Discs, that is actually a person in your life, or well, a situation, an opportunity that didn't exactly work out as you planned it, or well, it's not working yet, and you're worried about this. You're worried about, you know, feeling betrayed or having betrayed someone, kind of. Maybe even betrayed your inner child, yourself, your emotionality right here. So let's see how this is received. In the spot of the two, there is the Seven of Discs. The Seven of Discs in this deck talks about failure. For me, it's more about evaluation, right? So learning from your mistakes, that kind of deal, right? But remember, you're coming from a completion card, right? You're coming from the Four of Wands, which is a beautiful energy to to start with, and then learning through sorrow and failure is like, okay, you kind of getting out of that energy, you're closing out that chapter, you're completing that chapter right here. So it's done for, right? Now let's see how you, with the Seven of Cups, Seven of Discs evaluation of your sorrowed heart, how you're dealing with that, what you're gaining from that as an insight. In the spot of the three, that is the Magus, and the Magus in reverse, but it's the Magus. So that's the Magician. That is the one that is using alchemy to manifest reality, right? So in a sense, you're realizing that you put these things, sorrow and failure, in your path to become who you are now, to be that smartass, to know about the pros and cons, to really know what you're talking about, in a sense, right? So you are becoming that Queen of Discs through those experiences, through knowing what works and what doesn't. Now, be aware that this is something that is happening inside of you, right? The upper half, right? So it's not so much about you having to experience those emotions. It's rather you um, recapitulating. Is that the right word? It's like you're thinking about it, you're working through it, you're completing the cycle right here, and you realize at a certain point that you put this in your path to be even greater once you come out of it, um, on a quantum subconscious level, right? It is showing you how to manifest reality, how to become that Queen of Discs, because the Magus and the Queen of Discs are ultimately linked, right? Because the Magus is using, well, the Magus in the inner world is showing up in the outer world as a Queen of Discs, as someone who knows their worth, who knows where to invest and how to make things grow, and all that stuff, right? So if the Magus is the one imagining it, the Queen of Discs is the one putting it into action, right? And growing it and materializing it. Now let's see how you're working with this, though. In the spot of the four, that is your idea of home. There is love there. There's a Two of Cups in reverse. So, and right next to that, Prince of Cups. Very interesting. I don't want to get too much into the reversals, right? But it is about, it's not so much about a significant other, but rather about the concept of love for you. There is a Prince of Cups in there, all right? So for some, it might be a new person coming in, definitely, right? For some, it's a new person coming in. And for most of you, though, it will be your longing for love and your trust in that playful kind of love, um, by probably realizing something about how you learn to love in your home situation, right? Maybe realizing that your relationships don't have to work out like your mother's and father's relationship did, or whatever, you know. It can be different. You're not bound to. However you learn to love, you are evolving from that. um, it's not just directed at people with broken homes, right? It's very subtle in a sense, right? It's like you have your own way of loving. I really hope that this video is not all cranky and stuff, but realizing that you have your own needs and your own way to love is where this two of cups in the spot of the four is coming from. And what it's talking about is like, yeah, how to be with another and how to be with yourself is very much depending on how you want to be and what you need, you know, and not how you're taught to be with another, right? So you're kind of um, going against that. You're realizing something about what caused the sorrow and the feeling of failure in your life in the past, coming from this two of cups in your spot of the four, where you're like, I always tried to, I always try to apply what I was taught, how I was taught to love. But then I realized with this Prince of Cups, I have to find a new way to love, how I want to experience love. You know, it's like I don't want, for example, you don't want to be jealous or whatever. You want to trust, right? You don't want to all those small things. You don't want to have to convince anyone to be with you. You just want it to be sure, right? Or you don't want a relationship that is driven through conflict. Some do enjoy that. Some like the friction. Maybe you don't, right? Maybe you do. Maybe it's the other way around, right? So this kind of deal where you're like, actually, we don't have to be and have to love like the ones that taught us love, or that, where we got it from. We can make up our own mind and we'll make up our own hearts. So what is causing friction here in the spot of the five, that is the Four of Cups. Here it's called luxury. It is a beautiful card, but it is kind of trying to keep water energy stagnant, so it's getting stale in a sense. So in the classic Rider-Waite deck, the Four of Cups talks about discontentment, and that luxury has sort of the same vibe. It's like trying to compensate stale emotions with things, or like emotional band-aids, right? And that's not exactly it. It's like if you make a gift, for example, right? You have to give that gift because you want to, the other person to have a good feeling from this, and not to just overcompensate your own shitty feeling, and that's kind of like the intention here. Is like, the thing that is causing friction is to be too attached to luxury, too attached to the things around what you truly want. Because what you truly want is a Prince of Cups that is playfulness and excitement around emotionality, right? And also being vulnerable and all that stuff, right? So your inner child. Your inner child doesn't need the luxury. It needs love, and unconditional love. And that's what you're probably experiencing, is that the sorrow and the, let's say, evaluation, right? This is it good, is it not good kind of Seven of Discs energy is coming from thinking you need all this stuff around emotions, but actually the only thing you need is for those emotions to be true and wholehearted. And and that's why probably you're moving away sort of from this Queen of Discs energy, which can be a person where you're like, you know what, actually I don't care about it being safe, I want it to be real, you know um, and it doesn't have to be a person, it can be a situation where you're like, you know what, I don't want it to be safe, I want it to be real. See what I'm getting at? It's always the same energy, whether this is represented through a person in your life or represented through a situation, and you are working through that energy. That way, it is the same energy that you're confronted with. Rain is getting really heavy right here. Amazing. Well, there's in your challenge right here. There's a lot of water. Maybe that's linked. Let's see. In the spot of the 7, that is your identity or attachment, there is adjustment. So yeah, you're adjusting your identity. Adjustment is also, it's a major arcana. It's called judgment in the Rider-Waite tarot. Here it's adjustment, which makes it a little more clear that it's about something profoundly changing, right? You're not going to be the same after this transformation. And it's really freeing, right? So that is the manifestation half, right? So that new moon kicks in, and it adjusts your judgment towards this situation from your past, where you're like, actually, I just want it to be real, right? I just want it to be real. And that's your rite of passage, you regaining strength and stability in your own passion, in your own fire energy, in what your motivation and what drives you, is that readjustment where you're like, actually, I've been indulging in these emotional triggers to make me feel good, but what I truly want is this Prince of Cups energy. I want to feel safe and heard and understood, and give that to a person also, or a situation, whatever. If it is a job for you, then it is like, I want something that my heart is in, and I want to do it because I love it, right? Because it's the right thing to do, because I feel like I can contribute to the world, that kind of deal, right? So this is amazing. Adjustment in your 7. That is also an adjustment that's happening like this. It's like a switch turned where you suddenly see it differently. It's amazing. That it's not something to struggle with. It's really putting your experiences in perspective in a very mature, enlightened way, right? So that's going to be interesting. In your spot of the spot of the 8, that is what is causing abundance, what is sending you towards that abundance, making things work for you. That's what I get. That's the Ace of Discs. Wow. Ace of Discs is, there is so much potential in, like, so much potential you can manifest in your reality once you got your emotional motor right, right? Because you don't manifest from your imagination only. You manifest from your heart, right? Because this is how manifestation works. You imagine something, so the universe knows how to put up the grid, and then you put energy into it in terms of emotion, right? So how you feel about it is going to color that construct. Meaning, you imagine it, but you have to feel into it for it to come to life, right? That is exactly how manifestation works. So you're moving away from a Queen of Discs, trying to nurture and control everything, into an Ace of Discs, where there's so much more potential, including a Queen of Discs, right? There's so much more potential in adjusting your perspective on yourself and on your emotionality. Now let's see, in the spot of the 6, the insight that you're actually gaining from this, that is going to alleviate your experience. Alleviate and elevate, both. It's the 7 of Swords in reverse is futility. 7 of Swords is, well, it's a mindful deception, or not exact. Well, I get deception for you here, but it's like a strategy, right? It's strategizing. It's being very strategic with matters of the heart, which is not always the right way to go, and you're realizing that. You're realizing the strategy you had, how you were working with sorrow and how you were working with failure, and and that you always try to overcompensate in the past, but actually you don't need all this overcompensation. What you need is for it to be real and to be wholehearted and trustworthy and all that stuff, because that holds so much more potential and so much more power, right? So whatever it is you are re-evaluating here, that Queen of Discs, I get a strong sense that it's a person or it's a situation that is linked to a person, whatever, but it's someone that is portraying that kind of mindset, right? That kind of mindset can be a false sense of manifestation where you're like, you just have to believe in things and they're going to happen. It's like, yeah, no, that's not how manifestation works, right? You don't sit meditating on your ass all day and things magically appear. That's not how manifestation works. It's rather you meditate, get the insight on what you want to do, what your heart is actually in, where you have the most energy to give, and then you go get active, give that energy, right? So it's not just coming from a passive self-worth kind of deal, right? And that Queen of Disc in reverse is talking a lot about putting something somewhere, seeding something, and then letting it grow, which is cool. But if you're not careful, the wrong thing is growing, right? And you can easily check what is growing by comparing a 2 of cups to a 4 of cups. When you're like, if it's in balance and us is all we need, that love or self-love, is all we need, that feels homey. If you're using 4 cups because you're trying to look for stability, that is overcompensating, right? It's like if you want to get, you know, if you want to get married just for getting married, just for having the feeling that they're not running away, that's exactly the wrong motivation, right? So if you're doing whatever you're doing for your inner child to be less fearful, that is not exactly like, that's not the motivation that you want to look for. But I get the sense that you're realizing that right now, that you're in the middle of realizing that, where you're like, you know what, actually, I always looked for that emotional stability because I didn't have that at home like this, right? And that's why I'm trying to now manifest that in my reality. But that is the thing with this kind of manifestation. The more you try, the less it's true, the less you get from it, you know? So that is probably, well, that's the best advice I can give you, is like, you've been trying too hard, and that's why it ended up in sorrow and failure, because you were too attached to the idea of keeping the love, and not being judged and whatever, it's like, it's not about that, you know that's a funny thing with judgment. It's never about yourself. Like, if you are being judged, it's always their problem, right? It's not like their judgment of you only counts for you if you're trying to engage in whatever they're engaging in. For example, if someone is like judging you on a test to get into college or blah, then yeah, their judgment kind of matters for you. But why? Why do you want to be part of that, where you're judged, like where you're not misunderstood, when you misunderstood and all that stuff? No, in general, the judgment people have of you, it only matters to them. It doesn't matter to you at all, right? And the moment you realize that, that's when you don't need luxury to overcompensate your emotionality anymore. That's when you're emotionally strong enough to make work anything in your reality that you want to make work, right? With this Ace of Disc right here. And it's not trying to be over controlling, or maybe that is like a helicopter mother, that'd probably be more a Queen of Wands. But the Queen of Discs is very nurturing, right? And here's a little in reverse, so it's maybe a little over nurturing and trying too hard, you know. This entire reading screams like trying too hard. And to come back to the beginning of the reading, to the very beginning, where I'm like, yeah, this is probably about you having to start something before you have figured it out in all, like, until the end. At a certain point, you have to just start and do the rest on the fly. And this is kind of you as an air sign trying too hard, is to get it right from the get-go. Well, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can only build a structure or a system that is looks like it's going to work fine, and then adjust it in the process, right? Adjust it. And that is cool. That is part of that process. So at a certain point, you're going to just start doing it. You're well set up for whatever it is you're trying to do. I get a strong relationship feeling here, but it doesn't have to be relationship. It's really about you finding love, in a sense that you feel safe, feel understood, feel like what you're doing is a good thing for society, humanity, whatever. Like, it's the right thing to do, it gives you a good feeling, and you don't have to overcompensate to make you feel good anymore. But you like, your love is true, and that's what you're striving for here. That is your rite of passage. You adjusting what emotional fulfillment means to you, and how you get that emotional fulfillment. You're going to get a strong sense of self, right? And realize how you've been trying to manipulate people around you, or manipulate yourself into feeling a certain way, right? Being too smart about it, in a sense. And I'm all for overthinking, man. I'm a real overthinker. But when it comes to emotions, um, it's always good to know where they're coming from. And that's what you're figuring out right here, is like, where do my emotions and emotional needs are come from, and how do I work with this so I can manifest better shit in my reality. And that's what you're going to do, right? So there's a lot of potential for manifestation on the table the moment you realize I have to make some adjustments on my emotional body and stop being so fucking smart about it. Just, you know, go with it, see where it takes you. Thank you so much, Gemini. I hope that resonated with you. If it did, drop a comment, like, and subscribe. Check out daywalker-bali.com. Sign up for the newsletter for the shop. It's going to take a while, but it's going to go. It's going to fly. And yeah, check out the Instagram and TikTok channels. Thank you. I love you so much.